Welcome back once again, everybody. Be sure to hit the subscribe button because we're going to be going over the January 2021 past developer suggestions, which happens to be shorter than usual. And the way I'm going to be doing it is start with tanks and then planes and then continue on as the list usually goes. So enough dilly-dally, let's get on with these tanks, starting with the Panzerjäger Tiger P Elephant, which is an upgraded Ferdinand with some extra armor added to the front, as well as elsewhere slight things were changed. It's also covered in Zimmerman paste, or however you pronounce that. Also got a cupola for the commander, and the tracks were widened. Now the armor changes, there's no exact numbers exactly what was changed where, so what it looks like is just there's an extra armor where they put the MG port on the front of the tank. It would be an upgrade, but in reality it wouldn't change a whole lot about the Ferdinand. Already the 200mm is there, nothing in game can penetrate it, so adding more armor to that location is the same. The corners of the front are still only 90mm. The suggestion says it would be folded with the current Ferdinand. I think it's possible it could be an event tank. You could also have it be a modular upgrade like you have with so many Russian tanks. However, personally, I feel like it would actually best sit as an event vehicle, because currently Germany isn't really in need of another 6.3 tank destroyer, but Gaijin is in need of German event vehicles, so instead of giving them some random foreign vehicle, we could actually give them a German vehicle that people would recognize and would probably like a lot, because the Ferdinand is actually a pretty good tank, at least in game. Quick side note before we move on to the next tank, my cat likes sitting on my desk, and normally I don't mind it. Sure, she's gross and smelly and dumb, but she's also cute, so I'm like, yeah, sure, I can pet the cat while I work on my videos, but she keeps on tossing my phone off my desk. Quit it, cat. Next up is another tank that I would actually really love to see, the T-20. It sounds like a US tank, but it's actually a Russian prototype tank. It was one of the many stages that turned the BT-7 into the T-34. It was armed with the same gun as the BT-7, the 45mm 20K L46, had 20 to 25mm heavily sloped armor, and like the BT-7 was pretty quick with a top speed of 75 kilometers per hour, thanks to its 500 horsepower engine at 1800 RPMs. The suggestion says that it should be in the tech tree, which I guess could make sense. There's quite a big gap between the BT-7 and the T-50, and this could definitely be put there, maybe at 2.0 or something. Though it being a premium makes me want to say that it should be in a premium slot, though I guess Russia already isn't sparse when it comes to rank 1 premiums. Though I guess you do already have all the stages that turn the BT-7 into the T-34 to make as premium, so you don't necessarily need this one to be a premium. Next one down, we're going to the British with the Saxton family. This one, an open-top SPG, looks a lot like the M7 Priest, but actually is not. These chassis were actually made out of the Canadian Ram chassis, as when a 25-pounder was fired out of the Priest chassis, it broke the dang thing. The suggestion is for the entire family of them, as there was actually 3 of them. The first 2, the Mark 1 and 2, had the quick-fire 25-pounder, 87.6mm gun, which, while being a howitzer, did actually have AP ammunition, so it could definitely be a threat to enemy tanks. The third variant was the Canadians' attempt to stick a 17-pounder in the thing. It didn't fit that well, and bits of the gun was exposed to the enemy, not the bits that you want exposed to the enemy, mind you. And there were plenty of other easier to manufacture tanks that were carrying the 17-pounder, so this was a bit pointless. However, that could be a pretty interesting higher tier or maybe premium tank destroyer for the British. Though if we're going to be going with minor nations or a Commonwealth tree or whatever Gaijin's plan to do with all this Royka, maybe we should save these Saxtons for that, as the British already had their own indigenous self-propelled guns that use the 25-pounder. Next one down for Japan is the Type 97 Shiki, which is a weird Chiha tank destroyer where they had put a 37mm gun into the hull of a Chiha, and the turret was still there but only had a machine gun. The type of gun is presumed to be used a Type 100 37mm gun, which is already currently in game, on the Ki Ni. The tank was actually intended to be used as a command tank, but only ever saw use as a training tank. However, as the current Japanese tank tree goes, for their tank destroyer line, the very first tank you can research is the Ho-Ri at 1.3, and you might end up taking your reserves into a higher tier battle. Having this thing at 1.0 in the tank destroyer line could give you a fair warning. Maybe you don't want to up tier yourself so fast without getting some proper tanks. It also gives new players a proper introduction to how to play a tank destroyer and not a mean yeet cannon. However, unfortunately, knowing Gaijin's track record with Japanese tanks, we're never going to see this thing, at least not in like 5 or 6 years. Next one down, we have France with an LVT-A4 Alligator with a 40mm Bofors. Beyond that, there's not a whole lot to say. It's French, it's a LVT with a L60 Bofors, not the L70 with the 93mm penetration. So I'm pretty sure this one only has around 72mm penetration, still pretty good. It does have anti-air capabilities, so you could perhaps put it in the main tree be in the anti-air line, though it wouldn't have a whole lot more firepower than the Deuce and a Half that they already have. Personally, I'd love to see this thing in game because it looks kind of cool. However, a few obvious issues I could see is that it's pretty tall out of the water and very lightly armored, so it'd be easy for an aircraft to kill it. Could also be an event vehicle because it's so weird. No, that was actually all of the tanks, kind of short. Let's get onto the planes, starting with a German one, the Jankers U-52 3M G7E, a very well-known German transport plane that was made into a bomber during Germany's secret rearmament program. Yes, those are indeed tractors for towing fields, not tanks. Don't look at them. It had a max bomb load of 1,500 kilograms and had 3 machine guns. Either all of them were 7.92s, or only 2 of them were those, and one was a 13 mil. Its max speed was quite low, as it was a 1930s aircraft, having a top speed of 265 kilometers per hour. This is one of those aircraft that I feel like should have already been in game because it is so iconic. Perhaps the transport variants are the more iconic ones than this bomber variant, but the bomber variant's the only way we'd get in the game. Another aircraft that would fit the same criteria would be the C-47, which, when used by the United States, was never armed. However, the Russians had their copy of it, the Li-2, which had a bomber variant. So I'd very much love to see that in game, alongside, of course, the Ju-52. And in the scenario with these aircraft, I don't think it would be too much of a bother if they were event vehicles, because not really going to be missing anything from the tree if they were that. And they're low tier ones, so it's likely that a lot of people would get them. However, I would think it would be better if they were in the main tech tree, or at least Golden Eagle premiums. Following that is a British Air Cobra, which is an Air Cobra. It was slightly different than the US one. It had a 20mm and 250 cals on the nose and 4 7.62s in the wings. It was only ever really tested by the British. They didn't entirely love them, and I think they sent them to Russia. Typically, that's a sign that you don't love something. There was one that was piloted by a well-known British pilot, and the suggestion seems to want to have that one be an Ace Premium. Although as late, Gaijin hasn't been doing the Ace Premium thing much at all. So maybe just a regular one without someone's name attached to it. But in the tech tree, the only place I could really see it is as a premium, because there's no real need for the British to have an Aero Cobra. So you can give it a 2-3 battle rate and slap it right next to the British Corsair. Next down the list, we have the Ki 106 for Japan, a prototype wooden Ki 84. Generally, it was just a Ki 84, but made out of wood, armed with only 2 20mm Ho-5 cannons, although the first production one had 4, and could carry 2 250 kilogram bombs. The engine was a 1,990 horsepower Nakajima Ha-45 engine, propelling the aircraft to a top speed of 620 kilometers an hour at 6,400 meters. It never entered production because the war ended. It was a bit heavier than the actual production variant because it was made of wood, not light aluminum, and I'm not really sure if it'd be more or less fire resistant. But the real question is, where would it go in the tree? Personally, I kind of would like it in the main tech tree, maybe folded with one of the already Ki-84s, perhaps the first one. But guys would probably take the easy way out and make it an event vehicle or something like that. After that, we have the IMAM Row 41, a biplane armed with 2 7.7s. It's kind of slow, actually kind of slower than other reserve level aircraft. However, I do think this would be a good addition to the Italian tree because currently Italy only has 2 reserve biplanes while other nations have 3. So perhaps this could be put in place of the missing third. What used to be that one ground attack that they have, but they made that no longer reserve because it was just too good. It had 50s, like come on, why is it reserved? After that is a French plane, the LN40 family. It's a weird looking pre-war French plane, armed with 1 20mm and 2 7.5, similar to many other French aircraft at the time. Had a not so amazing top speed of 380 kilometers an hour at 4,000 meters, and there are 4 variants of it built. Personally, I would like to see it in game because it has a weird tail. That would be cool and very different, though its performance isn't really something amazing, and the French tree already has planes in that power level, but I wouldn't be against it being added. The last one is bizarrely labeled for a Canadian nation, but Canada doesn't exist yet, is the Avro Canada FC-105 Aero, a Canadian jet with a maximum top speed of Mach 1.98. It had no guns and only fired missiles. In total, it had 8 missiles it could fire that were aim-4s, which could either be set up to be infrared guided or radar guided, so you could have 4 of each if you really wanted it. Why a Canadian jet? Why a Canadian jet with no guns? I don't know. I don't think it's hinting towards anything in the future, though we did just get a hint towards some South African tanks. Maybe this is a hint towards a Canadian tech tree as well, or maybe a Commonwealth tree. But I gotta say, this jet is out of place currently in game. We don't have any jets that only fire missiles. Perhaps they're coming on their horizon, but they're not there yet. However, if it was to be added, I wouldn't be against it. It'd be kind of interesting to have a jet that functions different than other ones. For ships, guess what? I'm not going to talk about them because because you know more than I do, the South Dakota class battleship and the Congo class battleship. I will link in the corner 2 videos from that one ship guy who talks a lot about vessels, so he will fill you in on these ships. Generally, what you could say is they're much bigger than anything we currently have in game and would be OP if added today. Also, I don't understand why you would make suggestions for these vessels. It's not like they're unknown or anything. It'd be like making a suggestion for the Tiger tank. Like, you don't think it's going to be added already? But extra note about the Congo class battleship is, for some reason, the name always reminds me of Donkey Kong pounding on a Congo drum. And that is all the vehicle suggestions. We're going to go on to the others, but yeah, kind of short. No helicopters either. That random Canadian jet. We'd find if that was hinting towards something. A lot of hints flying around lately. Also, apparently rumors of rank 7 jets are on the horizon. But anyways, let's get into these other sections. They're kind of interesting too. First up is one for Helicopter Enduring Confrontation 2.0, as they are titling it. While I don't think I could successfully summarize it in the span of a rather short video, basic ideas were to make the game mode more PvE focused, give utility helicopters something to do, like transporting troops. Although despite these changes, I still feel like it would end up like Spawn Camping Simulator, with the Ka-50s outranging all the smaller helicopters by a long shot, and probably also the base AA. Honestly, I just feel like helicopters aren't designed for an enduring confrontation game mode. They're more PvE type things. Or if you could have a mixed enduring confrontation where helicopters weren't the main focus, but in addition to tanks and planes, like they are in real life. Next one was for a map idea of the Battle of Koto Fortress in Manchuria, and the place looks pretty cool. It's got a lot of concrete bunkers and whatnot everywhere, and we don't have a historical Japanese location yet. This would actually be Japanese, Russian, and technically Chinese as well. It was a bit of an issue, and if you've noticed, Gaijin hasn't been doing historical maps lately, and that's because historical locations aren't exactly the easiest to balance. Next one is for decals and skins, and for this one we have, first, a request for the Scottish flag to be purchasable with GE any time of the year, not just during special events. And the one under that is for French decals, including a free French flag. Honestly, I feel like we should have a whole lot more flags than we do already in game. For example, the flags I talked about here, the Scottish one and this free French flag. But what about like an Imperial Japanese flag or flags of each state of the United States? We have the US flag twice actually, one with 48 stars and one with 50. But I know for certain that a good number of Texans would absolutely love to be able to slap a Texas flag on their Abrams. But perhaps you don't need every single state. A lot of states, like Oregon for example, have some pretty terrible state flags, though ones like California would be pretty cool. But also some of the US territories like Puerto Rico. I was actually having a comment conversation with someone a little bit ago about how there is no Puerto Rican flag, so they can't slap a Puerto Rican flag on any of their vehicles. Like, it's funny, they have both the British flag and the singularly English flag, but they don't have any US state flags. I don't entirely blame them though, most US state flags are kind of lame. After that is only 3 more of them. There was a Arabic interface suggestion, which makes sense, surprised it's not already there. Arabic's a pretty common language. And the following 2 are kind of gameplay suggestions. One is to return the HE cells to rank 1 tanks. A while back, they were actually removed from all rank 1 tanks. As you can see currently, that's how it is. The reason for this, from what I heard, never really looked into the matter, was that a lot of new players thought that HE did damage and they'd load all HE. So a simple solution to this would to be just remove the HE, and they'd be using the AP rounds up until they got to rank 2. By then they had realized that APs is the round that you use to kill tanks. And it wasn't a real big deal that it was removed from the game because 40mm AT rounds don't really do much at all. They did do quite a good amount of damage to open top vehicles, but besides that, not a whole lot. However, I've always felt like you should be able to get back that low tier HE once you have learned to use the AP to kill the tanks, because it was kind of useful when trying to kill spags. And also a point made in the suggestion is that some of the ones with autocannons could actually be used as spags, and having HE belts would do a whole lot more damage to a plane than the AP belts. What I would suggest to make sure that new players still aren't confused is that you can't unlock them till you get to rank 2, and then in the menu you can flip a switch that will allow you to equip rank 1 HE. I'll make it either too complicated for a new player or behind for a new player to be able to use that HE, and hopefully by then they'd have learned you use AP to kill tanks. And the final suggestion is for there be a G indicator, whether audio or visual, for when you're pulling Gs, because when you have a high level crew and your G bar is maxed out, the screen blacks out less, so you don't know when you're pulling Gs as much. So you might be pulling some Gs and then try to do a maneuver and snap your wing off. And that is all the suggestions for January of 2021. Hopefully I can get the February suggestions closer to the date in which they are released. Thank you very much for stopping by. Before I end the video, I want to first give a big shout out to my patrons, YouTube members, and Twitch subs subs. Thank you very much, guys. I hope you're all having a great, fantastic day. If you have any comments or questions about this video, be sure to hit me up down below or on my Discord. If you've liked the video, be sure to hit the like button. If you didn't like the video, don't hit the like button. If you want to see more, hit that subscribe button. I make War Thunder weekly news videos every Friday. I make random videos throughout the week, and I like to stream on Saturdays. So be sure to hit the bell icon to be notified anytime I upload anything else. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day. In the terms of bonus news, okay,